Good morning. So, we continue with our discussion of plot, and yesterday we had been talking about various levels of plot. We have also discussed a number of theoreticians related to the concept of plot. So, we will continue from there. I would like to draw your attention to Roland Barthes, a very significant theorist, and his book An Introduction to the Structural Analysis of Narratives, where, and I quote Barthes, narrative may incorporate articulated languages, spoken or written, pictures, gestures. It is present in myth, legend, fable, short story, epic, history, tragedy, comedy, pantomime, painting, cinema. The history of the narrative begins with the history of mankind. Now, narrative may, this is what we have been talking from the beginning of this lecture on narrative and plot. Narrative could be verbal, written or visual. This is what Roland Barthes is trying to say. Pictures tell a story, gestures tell a story. Narrative is present in myth, legend, fable, short story, even clothes tell you a narrative. Okay, people research on those things as well. So, there is no field where narrative is not present, everything tells a story. From there we will go on to 7 kind of primary plots. What are? So, we have already seen the theories of plots, definitions of plot. Now, let us look at various, and we have also seen levels of plot. We have also seen what Gerard Genet talk about. Plot and time, order, frequency, duration. We have also seen the narrator, who is a narrator, the unreliable narrator, the reliable narrator, the homodiegetic, heterodiegetic and intradiegetic. So, 3 levels of narration and voiceovers. Now, here we talk about 7 primary plots. Now, you can look at these some of the stills. So, now we have Christopher Reeve doing Superman on us, and the plot is not Superman plot, but the kind of plot is Achilles. Now, why Achilles? Why Superman also Achilles? The Achilles plot, what? Yeah.
He has a weak spot.
He is a weak spot, and what a weak spot is that?
Achilles' heel is a weak spot for him.
And in Superman,
Krypton.
Krypton is a weak spot. So, all powerful hero, indomitable, indefatigable, and it also tells you a story of overcoming all odds, but then protagonist has a weak spot. So, in Achilles it ends with a tragedy, and in most superhero movies we want to see them winning. So, we do not have those, but they do have a weak spot. So, can you think of more examples from popular culture? The Achilles plot, can you think of more examples?
Perhaps in Spider-Man, how with Mary Jane Watson, sorry, he tries to stay away from her because he feels that the supervillains would use her against him or something like that.
But that's the case even in Batman. Yeah. So, perhaps, but not this. Yeah, here it's actually a physical weak point. So, Superman is a very good and very strong example.
Iron Man, how the whatever.
Perhaps
the device.
Iron Man. Yeah, Iron Man could be seen as another good example. His heart is his weak point. We also have the Cinderella plot. You can think of the Julia Roberts character in Pretty Woman, and also Rocky Balboa, his narrative. So, stories of transformation, and transformation usually for the better. The underdog rises against all odds, just like Cinderella. So, this is called the Cinderella plot. Again, these plots tell you a rags to riches story and invariably have a fairy tale ending. Can you give me more examples apart from Rocky and Pretty Woman, My Fair Lady. Yeah, My Fair Lady is a Cinderella plot. Anything else in recent times?
Slumdog.
My Left Foot, Daniel Day-Lewis, an Irish film for which he won the Best Oscar award, again is a Cinderella story. Rags to riches, the protagonist rising and making it big against all odds. We have the Jason Plot. Now, Jason Plot is about quest. Okay, see, all these are classic narratives from which we take these names and apply it to our film studies. So, and our readings of narratives. So, Jason Plot means quest for a cause, and this is something that we have seen in Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces also. So, good examples would be Thelma and Louise, although it ends in a tragic way, both of them dying at the end, but still it is a quest for something. Here they are on a quest for their identities. Lord of the Rings, again a classic example. John Wayne's The Searchers is another example where there is a quest. The hero is on a quest for something. It is a very ambiguous kind of a movie, whether he really wants what he has been searching for or whether he wants to destroy it, but still there is a plot for a quest. There is a plot tracing the hero's quest. And Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver, again tracing or going back to the Jason myth. So, I would suggest that you watch Taxi Driver, because this is a movie that we will be discussing quite frequently. What does he search for, Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver? What is he looking for? What is the quest in Taxi Driver? Rehan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the quest in Taxi Driver?
No, he wants
No.
to
That's
assassinate
at
him.
one point, yeah, to a single man fighting, waging a war against a corrupt system. The immediate quest is to rescue a young girl caught in the web of prostitution, played by Jodie Foster. The Faust myth, the Faustian plot. Who was Faust? Who was Faust?
Made with Satan.
Faust made, Dr. Faustus,
Yeah.
German legend, he made a plot with the devil. In exchange for something, he pledges his soul. After 24 years or so, you have complete control over my soul. You can do whatever you want to do with my soul. Yeah. And here we have example in Wall Street, okay, where a young machine almost pledges away his soul to watch this movie. We will be talking about that. So, it's story of temptation, a sinister kind of a bargain, and then protagonist faces a moral conflict, the Faustian plot. In a lighter vein, The Devil Wears Prada is again, you give 1 year of your life to me, which magazine is that? Runway magazine. Runway magazine, and the editor as played by Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, the young rookie, and you give me 1 year of your life, almost like pledging away your soul, and I will give you, the doors of heaven, doors of unlimited success would be open for you. Al Pacino playing the actual devil in Devil's Advocate to Keanu Reeves' advocate, the lawyer. Rosemary's Baby is another example of Faust myth. Who is the director, Srinath?
Polanski.
Polanski. Okay, watch the movie. It's a very ambiguous film. Okay, you really based on a novel by Ira Levin. Yeah, so you really aren't sure that who is the Satan here, who is the devil here. Okay, whether it's the husband, okay, or or maybe husband himself is one of the victims or representative of Satan. Who knows? But a very strong example. The Orpheus myth. Now, the myth of Orpheus tells us that Orpheus attempted to rescue his dead wife Eurydice from the underworld. He took a perilous journey to retrieve her, and he gets her back, but on one condition, that while on their way out he should not look at her, but he cannot resist the temptation. He turns around, looks at her and loses her forever. So, the Orpheus myth tells you about, or the theme tells you about loss. Inception is a very good example of the Orpheus myth. Memento again has elements of Orpheus myth. Watch Memento, we will be talking about the film quite often here. Romeo and Juliet myth, now need not necessarily end tragically, but boy meets girl is a very popular plot in many parts of the world. Love is requited, therefore we call it Romeo and Juliet, not because they end up tragically, but it is a story, it is a theme of requited love. It may or may not have a tragic or happy, I mean it could work both ways. So, in Sleepless in Seattle, boy meets girl and they end up together against all odds. So, that is a happy ending. Titanic of course is a classic example of Romeo and Juliet plot, they take all the elements. From our own culture I can think of Amir Khan's first film Qayamat Se Qayamat Tak. It is a totally, they take the template of Romeo and Juliet and set it in contemporary times. Tristan and Iseult theme, that is also the title of a movie, I think, James Franco. Love defeated, the idea is that love is defeated and unrequited usually ends in a tragic ending, at least for one of the partners. So, you have a James Caan in Misery, where he plays a successful writer and is kept in captivity by an obsessed fan. She would not let him go. So, it is a horrifying tale. And then Tristan and Iseult theme in Fatal Attraction, Michael Douglas and Glenn Close in dangerously attracted towards a much married Michael Douglas, and then what happens. However, you must remember Romeo and Juliet depicts tragedy in pure and honest love, whereas the Irish legend delineates tragedy in guilty love. So, please do remember that these are two contrasting episodes, and so these are the 7 primary plots. Any questions you would like to, any observations here?
Would the movie Shakespeare in Love fall into this category?
Which category?
Tristan and Iseult, because in the end
Love requited.
But it's a tragic ending in the sense that she's been pledged to be married off to another nobleman. So
Yeah, but already taken, yes, combines elements of Romeo and Juliet as well as Tristan and Iseult. Yeah, so not an out and out. Yeah, but usually that is what is happening in contemporary times. They are not taking the classic template, but they are playing around with genres. So, one of these days I am going to discuss film genres where the categories are very well maintained, and then genre blending and genre bending. So, how genre? So, why is Shakespeare in Love the way it is? Because it is scripted by who? Tom Stoppard. Tom Stoppard, whose play Dogs Macbeth and Cahoot's Hamlet we have already discussed. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. So, Tom Stoppard is a dramatist who is very fond of playing around with Shakespeare. Therefore, the kind of plot you get in Shakespeare in Love. Well, Inception can be loosely categorized as a science fiction movie. Don't you think so? Yeah, so it's a science fiction, it's a futuristic, I mean dream within dream within dream, what's that? Okay. But then, so that it can be categorized as a myth, the plot is also based on or draws on the Orpheus myth. So, you can't just be dismissive of these plot categories. Perhaps there is a blending of these categories, but they are there. Okay. So, the template is there, it is what the screenwriter, the director, when they collaborate, what they do with the elements. Now, what is Ghost? You remember Ghost, Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze. Well, I would call it a requited love, lost love, Romeo and Juliet trajectory. So, yes.
Are all Bildungsroman movies Cinderella Plot or Story of Pursuit?
Which movie?
Bildungsroman movies.
Huh?
Are they all Cinderella Plot?
Bildungsroman movies are all about coming of age. Okay, so Lord of the Rings is a Jason myth. Okay, that is quest for something. The hero takes a physical journey, which is also his spiritual journey, ends up in learning certain life lessons. Okay. So, not there you can say that this is a very good example of Bildungsroman, where hero actually learns about something and takes a journey, physical or spiritual. Okay. To actually say that all these plots must fix Bildungsroman category is stretching it too much. You tell me.
I don't think it fits in any of this.
Into any of these categories? Well, it could be a case of genre blending then. Yes.
The Jason plot, they can be the quest for something very intangible also.
Exactly.
Like identity.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. So, therefore, I was thinking, therefore, we talked about Thelma and Louise. Thelma and Louise are not on a quest for a pot of gold or the mysterious ring, a powerful potent symbol of any power or wealth. Okay, what are they on? What's their quest all about? Identity. Okay, one day they just feel they have had it enough with very weak men in their lives, so they don't want to put up with that anymore. They take off.
Does there have to be like a physical quest in search of that, or can
It could also be a spiritual. Yeah, so we have to be very careful about it. The movie may not take you on a journey, so it need not be a road movie, but it's a journey. Rain Man, what kind of a plot would that be? It's a road movie, it's a buddy movie, but is there a plot somewhere? Well, you don't have a brother plot anywhere there. But it could be perhaps a blending of certain genres. Rain Man actually is a very good example of genre blending. Yeah.
Even comes under that because how they go to Vegas and they do all of that. So that's it's kind of like an underdog story as well. Rain Man, if you want to put it in one way.
Rain Man. Yeah. Jason plot comes closest to the plot of Rain Man. Okay.
So horror and zombie and survival doesn't come into any of these, right?
Now, horror and zombie, I gave you the example of Rosemary's Baby, which is a Faustian bargain. Okay, so that's a very good example. Okay, now think of all these zombie movies, what's happening here? Is there a bargain? However understated, whether it's explicitly stated as in Rosemary's Baby or implicitly is there, perhaps. So, it could be because all these horror movies, they take their template from legends of the great Satan. Okay, and then you think Satan, then devil and Faust cannot be far away. So, perhaps it goes back.
Did you say any movie can be fit into these plots?
No, I said that there was a time when classic narrative could be understood along these terms. So, these are the 7 primary plots. Now, the trend is that we defy genres. So, when you start defying genres, unless you are looking at a very an out and out classically made movie like Lord of the Rings, we do not have a classic plot. Okay. So, classic plot does not exist anymore, but what we are witnessing now is a case of genre blending. So, therefore, plots blend, the primary plots are also blending in some way, and it has to be, otherwise we will have monotonous kinds of movies all all around.
Which plot will you break with?
Okay. Well, 7 is also loosely Jason plot. There is a quest. There is a quest for something. There are life lessons learnt at the end about ourselves. Okay, so what I would suggest is that you read narrative fiction by Raymond Cannon, narrative fiction contemporary poetics, and Gerard Genette. We have been talking about Genette's narrative discourse from the beginning. So, those are the two classics that I would like to talk about, I would like you to consider